Molly Pitcher. Molly Pitcher was born at 42 Orange Street, Marblehead in 1738 in a timber frame house that stood directly opposite an old overgrown path that led up to the summit of the old burying hill. Shortly after her birth, her parents suspected that she had inherited certain abilities from her peculiar grandfather. As soon as she could talk, she could repeat almost verbatim complicated conversations that she had overheard. When she went to school she could, upon returning home, repeat literally word-for-word conversations which her mother had been having with neighbors even though Molly had not been present. It was believed that she could read the thoughts of her family and of friends who came to visit, thoughts she would often repeat out loud much to the embarrassment of her parents. She is also credited with predicting the War of Independence and the American victory over the British. This made her deeply unpopular in Marblehead where the local traders supported British interests. Molly grew up to be an extremely plain girl. Her head was large and much too big for her slender body and she had a hooked nose, thin lips, hooded eyes and a neck, which seemed to be permanently crooked or wry. She had few suitors, many of whom were put off by her unprepossessing looks and her sinister reputation as a clairvoyant and mind reader. At the age of 22, however, she married Robert Pitcher, a tradesman in Marblehead, and, shortly afterwards, the couple moved to nearby Lynn around 1760. By the 1770s, her fame as a clairvoyant had spread throughout New England and people traveled long distances, from far beyond the borders of Massachusetts in order to consult her. Just how accurate her prophecies were is uncertain. Some may have been no more than clever and educated guesses, but it is possible that she may have had at least some precognitive powers. Similar to her grandfather, Molly Pitcher could often tell which ships would or would not return to port. She could predict sudden and violent storms, and, in those days, when pirates prowled the New England coast, such knowledge was vital to the success of any enterprise. Moreover, similar to her grandfather again, Molly Pitcher was known to issue curses against those whom she did not like or who had crossed her in some way, and many a mariner was said to have paid with his life in violent storms directly attributed by local people to his exchanging hot words with her. Molly died in 1813, at the age of 75, and by this time her reputation as a wise woman, or witch, was well established all over the east coast of America. Her fame prompted the poet John Greenleaf Whittier to write a long poem dedicated to her amazing powers of prediction in 1832. The idea of the thin, aesthetic magician making his way up to the ancient burying ground to call down elemental powers, or his misshapen and ill-proportioned granddaughter making predictions from her small house in Lynn must have appealed to Lovecraft's imagination. Both John Diamond and Molly Pitcher might well be characters from his tales and may indeed have formed the inspiration for some of the strange people who inhabit his fiction. His imagination may also have been fired by the strange anomalies to be found in New England religious thinking. For many of the early settlers, primal America was an extremely frightening place. It was a land of deep, dark woods in which all manner of evils were waiting for God's people. There were creatures such as the colonists had never seen before, and dark hellishly painted devils, as they took the Indians to be, who hid behind every bush, attempting to drag the righteous from the path that the Lord had set out for them. The only thing that these early settlers had to defend themselves with was their faith. And that faith could often take extreme forms, as the perceived evil grew stronger.